All right, we'll let you two go ahead and speak. I want to make sure everyone in the room can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks for having us, everyone. For those of us who haven't had a chance to connect before, I'm Eva Guidarini, and I work on our state and local government outreach team. So I'm your person if you're having any problems or have any questions about the platform. And I'm here with my colleague, Stephen, and I think a lot of you already know Stephen, but I'll let him introduce himself really quickly.
Hi, everyone. Stephen Wee here. I'm the public policy manager for Facebook, so I'm basically the lobbyist on the ground for Facebook in Washington and the Pacific Northwest states. Some of you may know me. I was in the Gov's office before doing outreach for about 6 years.
So just taking a look at this slide, I always like to start by stepping back and taking a look at the big picture about why Facebook is an important communications tool. I think that a couple of years ago, it was probably enough that if you guys were looking to get out a message to folks in the state, that you could do it with a couple of in-person appearances, a well-placed op-ed. But that's not really true anymore, right? The audiences you're trying to reach look a whole lot more like the folks in this picture. It's a sea of smartphones tuned to social media, and it's changing the way that government communication works. In this new world, Facebook is, I think, one of the critical tools to reaching out to your constituents and the folks that you represent in the state to let them know about what you're doing and how you can help them out. We click through the next slide.
All right.
Looking at Facebook in the US, just stepping back a bit to give you guys an idea of scale here, we've got about 217 million people who are active on the platform every month. 217 million is a really big number. What does it mean? Well, it means that about 8 out of every 10 internet users in the US are on Facebook. So 8 out of the 10 folks you're trying to reach are already using this platform, which makes it a great opportunity to meet people where they already are with messages you're trying to deliver to them. Next slide, please. So this is what we're going to go through here today. We'll talk a little bit about the basics, some sort of ground rules to know before you're using Facebook, and we'll be sure to touch on safety and security in this section. Then we'll go through tools that we have available that I think are particularly helpful in the government space. Then we'll get to content strategy, what you should be posting, how you should be posting it to make sure that the most number of people see the content that you're putting out there. And then I'll leave you guys with some resources, and Stephen and I would love to leave it open and leave plenty of time for Q&A if you guys have any questions for us. One of the first things I wanted to touch on when we're thinking about ground rules for how you're using your Facebook page is how people see your Facebook content. I think for a lot of you, when you go to post on your page, this is probably what you see, right? You navigate to your page, you're accessing it on desktop, this is how your content shows up to you. However, this is not how the vast majority of people you're trying to reach see your content. We go to the next slide. Folks see your content like this. 90% of discovery on Facebook now happens on a mobile phone. Almost everyone is looking at the content you're posting on a phone screen, which means a lot for how you want to think about designing content. It means really complicated graphics don't perform well anymore. You don't want anything more than 5 words in your graphic. It's impossible to read on a phone screen. It means that PDFs of like event flyers or press releases perform really poorly on the platform now because once again, they're impossible to read on a phone screen. So you want to make sure that you're really keeping your content simple and mobile friendly. It means that when you're posting a video, you want that video to be vertical because it takes up a whole phone screen as opposed to horizontal where it only takes up a small bit of real estate. So for every piece of content that you're thinking about, you want to be thinking about what it's going to look like when it's posted on a mobile phone, since that's how the vast majority of people that are engaging with your content are going to see it. Next slide. So I also want to touch here in this ground rules section on safety and security. You guys all run government pages, and government pages are always going to be a target for bad actors, so you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make sure your pages are safe and secure. As you guys all know, the way that you access a Facebook page is through a Facebook profile. So the way that you keep a Facebook page safe and secure is you make sure that page admins and editors and moderators and everybody who has a page role keeps their own personal account safe and secure. Now, I know this is going to sound really basic, but honestly, most hacks are not actually hacks. They're cases of poor password management. So setting a really strong password is actually key to keeping your account safe and secure. But beyond that, I would strongly, strongly, strongly recommend, there's nothing I could more strongly recommend than that every single page admin and editor and moderator, everyone with a page role on any of your government pages be required to turn on 2-factor authentication on their personal accounts. For those of you who don't know what two-factor authentication is, it basically just means that every time you log into Facebook from a device or browser you've never used before, you'll have to enter in a second piece of information in addition to your email address and your password. Usually it's a code that gets texted to your phone. Two-factor authentication prevents the vast majority of hacking attempts. In order to hack your account, if you have two-factor turned on, somebody would have had to hack both your email and your phone, which is obviously significantly less likely than them having hacked just one of those things. So please, please, please make sure you have strong passwords set and turn on two-factor authentication. If you go to the link at the bottom of the screen, which I will give you again at the end of this presentation, it's fb.me/securitycheckup. It will tell you how strong your password is and walk you through putting on a stronger one if it's not very strong. It will tell you if you have two-factor authentication turned on and will help you figure out how to turn it on if you don't. And it will also show you a list of the devices and browsers in which you're currently logged into your Facebook profile and allow you to log out remotely from any that you no longer have control over. So that's a great link that not only you, but anybody who has access to your government pages should go to at the end of this presentation to make sure those pages are safe and secure. Next slide. The other thing I want to mention here is that it is against Facebook's terms of service to use a fake profile to manage your page. So what do I mean by fake profile? I mean any profile that doesn't represent a real person, right? Have the name of a real person and isn't their only profile on the site. So you can't have like a separate Joe Smith profile with your government email address and then your true personal Joe Smith profile. You can only have one profile on Facebook. Part of how we keep Facebook safe is that we mandate that people are all their authentic selves on the platform, and we see that the vast majority of bad actor content on Facebook comes from people who are trying to create fake accounts. So we have bots that are constantly searching the site for these fake accounts. So if you're using one and we haven't caught you yet, we might in the future. If we catch your fake account, it's in violation of Facebook's terms of service. We'll take it down immediately and we won't be able to give you back access. So you want to preempt that by making sure that you're only using real profiles as page admins on these government accounts to make sure that you're keeping those accounts safe and secure. Next slide. So another thing I want to touch on here is phishing emails. Facebook is a big company. Instagram is a big company. There are always going to be bad actors out there who are impersonating Facebook and Instagram and trying to get you to do things in order to gain access to your Facebook or Instagram accounts. Here's a great example of a phishing email that was not sent from Instagram, but was designed to look like it was sent from Instagram to a Washington State Instagram page. A couple things to note here. First of all, if you ever get a suspicious looking email from Facebook or an email from an address that you don't recognize, that's a thing that you should send to Jessie, first of all, but also send to me. I'm always happy to have somebody look at it and tell you whether it's real or not. Don't feel bad about reaching out to say, hey, I'm just not sure if this is real or not. Would you mind checking before you click on any links? We're always happy to do that. Please feel free to do it. But I also think there are some helpful things you can think about when you're looking to spot a phishing email. And so looking at this real example, a couple of things here. We will never, real Facebook, real Instagram, will never, ever, ever, ever ask you to put in your password in something that is not our service, right? Like unless you are actually logging into Facebook or Instagram, we will never ask you for your password. If you forget your password, we don't send you your password, right? We do a password reset. We're never going to ask you to enter in your password except when you're logging into the site. So anything that asks you to do that, you should automatically find suspicious and realize that that's phishing. Also, be careful of typos, right? Your account, in this email, you can see it says, hello, Wash DNR. We regret to inform you that your account will be suspended because you have violated the copyright laws. Right? Like that's weird phrasing. The copyright laws is not a thing. That's clearly a typo. Be aware of stuff like that. You're not going to see that in emails that are coming from actual Facebook. There are never going to be buttons that take you through to external forms. Nothing like that. Everything about this is suspicious. The other thing you do want to check here is the email address. Everything from us is going to be from an @fb.com email address. Right? helpinstasupport.com is not a real email address, right? So always check that email address that's coming to you as well. So I think there's just some good things to note here in this example that clearly identify this as a phishing email. That being said, this one wasn't terribly sophisticated. There are sophisticated bad actors out there who might send really, really good phishing emails. So if you get one and you're not sure, just send it on to Jessie and Jessie can get it to me if we have questions, and we are always happy to check and see if it's actually from our support team or if it's something suspicious. we click through? So the next section we're going to touch on here are some tools to help you connect with your constituents on Facebook. Click through. So the three I want to touch on here today are Facebook Live, Groups for Pages, and Events. Click through. So Facebook Live, I unfortunately can't see the room anymore, but have you guys, maybe one person can just chime in, but do you guys regularly go live? Are people engaging and trying live on these pages?
I would say, yeah, I've got about 10 nods in the room. There are some of us who have ventured into that and others who have not.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad we've got some adopters in the room. I think it's been a really powerful tool in the government space. And part of the reason why is it's just a great tool for engaging people for long-form discussions. You can now go live from any Facebook app on any mobile phone. And when you go live, we send a notification out to all of your engaged page fans, and we let them know that you're live. So we're actively driving people to your live video, and that's not something we do with any other content type. The other great thing about live is that it's just a really engaging content type. People see that little live box at the top of the video, and they want to engage with it. People comment 10 times as much on live videos as they do on regular on-demand videos, and they watch them 3 times longer. So it's a really great place to have a long-form policy discussion because you can capture people's attention for a longer amount of time than you can with other mediums of content you share on the platform. Next slide, please. So what are some places or ideas where it might be good to go live? And I know that we've got some great examples from the room and would love to hear about those in Q&A. A couple of ideas here. I think live is a great place to break news, right? If something big is happening with your agency, go live. Let your fans know directly that it's happening. Don't count on the news to sort of deliver the message in the way you want, but be able to deliver that message directly to your fans. It's also great for behind the scenes stuff. You guys all have these incredibly cool, interesting jobs doing great work for the people in the state, but most people in the state don't know what you're doing every day, right? They don't know what your lives look like or what things are like behind the scenes, and taking people on sort of a live walkthrough of what you're doing can be a really fun and exciting way for them to explore all of the ways in which you're supporting them. My favorite way that folks use live is with a Q&A format, going live and taking questions from that comment section. I think this is great if you're rolling out a new policy or if hunting season is about to start and you want to go live with somebody who can answer questions that page fans have about how they get a permit or a license. I think it's a great way to really have a conversation with folks on your Facebook page as opposed to just preaching out information at them. And I also think it's great for these long-form policy discussions. One of my favorite ways folks do this is when they want to talk about sort of an in-depth issue, bring on like an expert and then somebody to interview that expert and have those two people have a conversation in Facebook Live, take some questions from the comment section, and just sort of have this long-form policy discussion using the medium. I think is a really exciting way to do that, and we'll actually have an example of that later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So groups for pages. This is a fairly new tool and one that actually came out of conversations we were having with groups like this. Traditionally, Facebook groups are only accessible to Facebook profiles, not Facebook pages, which was a problem for government pages who wanted to be able to engage in community groups and interest groups that were working around the issues that they care about. There are a lot of vet groups on Facebook, and we had a lot of Department of Veterans Affairs folks who wanted to engage in those, but we weren't able to do that because only profiles could engage in groups. So one of the things we did was roll out this tool called Groups for Pages. Now, if there is an admin in common between a group and a page, you can actually link a group and a page together, and then that page can post as the page in the group, comment in the group, share in the group, basically behave in the same way a profile could in the group, which I think can be really great for fostering community and discussion. You have any issues that you want to get people in your community talking about. So you can see we've got some examples here just to walk you through what it looks like. Here you can see we've got a police department. This is what the page looks like on desktop, and you can see in the bottom right corner there's a groups tab at the bottom of the page. If you click on that and we go to the next slide, you'll see it'll show a list of the groups that are linked to the page. You can then click through on that group, and if we do that and go to the next slide, you'll see that it opens us up into the group sort of surface right here, and you can see that the page is able to post in the group. We've seen this used in really interesting ways, especially around disaster response, where we've seen sort of EMS services and other folks set up these temporary groups where they can help people coordinate how to help each other. They're also great for volunteer efforts if you have an agency that organizes anything like that, community projects, or just broader discussion that folks want to have with your agency. So it's just one interesting tool that's now available to pages that didn't used to be, and I think can be particularly useful in the government space. Click through. The last tool I want to touch on here is events. I know that lots of you guys are hosting many events. I was looking through some of the pages, which I think is great. Every time you're hosting events, oops, flip back, thank you. I think you want to make sure that you are using a Facebook event. So I've seen a lot of people do things like put up a PDF flyer for an event that they're having as a post on Facebook. Those usually don't perform very well, right? Because they're really hard to read on a phone. What's great about a native Facebook event is that it is designed to look good on a phone, and is one of the best ways you can sort of turn online organizing that you're doing in Facebook into real offline action. Another thing I really love about Facebook events is that they allow you to crowdsource invitations. You can invite people in the community who you know are sort of big boosters or big supporters of what you're doing, and then they can turn around and invite all of their friends. And if there's a thing we sort of know about human nature, it's that folks are much more likely to go to events because their friends are going than they are to go to events because they're actually interested in the event itself. So if you're really trying to drive turnout, one of the great ways is to be able to show people where their friends are going, what their friends are doing. This is a great unit to do that. If I RSVP to an event on Facebook, then all of my friends are eligible to see that I'm going to that event in their news feed, and so they might find it and also be interested in attending. So for those of you that are doing events, I think this tool is particularly powerful, and it is certainly a better option than just posting up a PDF flyer or something else that's not mobile friendly. You click through. Content strategy. So this is the section where we're going to talk about what are my suggestions for sort of posting good content or creating good content that is going to rank high in newsfeed and be seen by a lot of folks. Click through. So I think the two really key things to remember when it comes to content that works well in newsfeed is it's authentic content and it's interactive content. And we'll talk through both of these. Click through. So authentic content. I think authentic content is often easier to think about when you're talking about a people page, right? It's easier to think how the governor might be authentic, right? To share content from a family pet, from a family, to tell a personal story. It's easier to think about authenticity when it comes from a person. But I also think that there are good ways for organizations and sort of departments and institutions to be authentic on the platform as well. I think one of the key ways to do that is to connect the work that you're doing every day to the community that you're supporting. I love this example from the State Department of Health, as they're really working to advocate for folks in the state who suffer from Alzheimer's and, give them a voice and a place in the debate. And sharing these stories and sharing these images of people in that community really ties all the hard work they're doing back to folks in the community, always tying it back to a person or a group or, a set of people in the community that you're helping, I think really adds authenticity to what you're posting. Click through. I also love when folks show the faces behind their organization as much as people are comfortable with. I think it really helps to humanize you. I particularly love this DNR example because not only is it showing the face of these incredible women who work for the department and who work to fight wildfires in the state, but it also has tied into a trend on Facebook, which was celebrating women, and it was International Women's Day. Lots and lots of people on Facebook were posting celebrating the women in their lives, and so the Washington Department of Natural Resources was able to actually tap into this trend that's happening on Facebook, right? Talk about something that people are talking about on the platform, which helps that content be seen even more, and at the same time, celebrate women, tap into a trend, and show some faces behind the organization. It's just a really great way to be authentic and engage. Oh, it looks like we clicked back. Can we click forward too? Here's another great example. Don't be afraid to be a little bit funny or to tell a joke or to have a little bit of a personality or a voice on the page. I love this example here about posting a cat video, which is obviously a thing you would see in lots of places on the internet, but not necessarily something you'd expect from a government institution. But it's fun and it's engaging and it feels real and it feels like the kind of content my mom would be posting on Facebook, and she's a person I engage with on Facebook, right? You want to look as much as you can like other people on the platform. So I love this example. So keep in mind, it doesn't all have to be really, really serious. It can be a little bit lighthearted. It can be a little bit fun. And you always want to make sure you're tying it back to the folks in your community. And also, I think really showing us the folks behind your organization are all great ways to think about being authentic on a platform. Obviously, some really awesome examples here. One, and I forget which department this was, but I was looking through your pages. Somebody had a great Instagram video of, I think it was the commissioner of a department, and like singing along in a car. It was like great and authentic and real and fun. And that's the kind of content that's always going to perform really well on the platform. So interactive content is also particularly important. So Facebook changed, and some of you, I'm sure many of you noticed, but last January, Facebook changed our algorithm. We made a change that we're calling a meaningful social interaction change. What this change does is it essentially downranks content that's being consumed passively. It downranks content that people are not having a conversation around on the platform, and it upranks conversational content. The reason why we did this is that we did a lot of research into how folks' well-being was when people use Facebook. Were they better off or worse off as a result of their use of Facebook? And what we found was a split answer. When people are just scrolling through a newsfeed, not engaging with anything, just looking at what people are posting, their feelings or their sort of metrics of well-being actually tend to go down, right? Imposter syndrome feelings increase and well-being goes down. However, when people are actively engaged in Facebook, when they're commenting, when they're having conversations, they actually tend to feel like they're more a part of a community and their well-being goes up. So we actually made this change to help sort of put that content that promotes well-being at the top of folks' news feeds. So one of the single best things you can do to have your content perform well in newsfeed is to make sure that that content is interactive. So I think there are two really key ways to be interactive. One is through like live conversations and the other is through comment replies, and we'll talk about both of these. Here's a favorite example of mine from actually a city government agency in Arizona. They're rolling out new water rates. So in this city, their water is a government-run utility, and they're rolling out new rates for the water. So they have two folks who come into the office and they do a live Q&A. They interview each other back and forth. They talk about the water rates and they invite questions in the comment section. And so people can ask questions about the water rates and they get answered in real time, which I think is a really great way to sort of liven up what could otherwise be a, let's be honest, not terribly sexy conversation about water rates. And so I think that having it be conversational really helped this content perform well on the platform. We click through. So that's obviously a slightly more formal example, but I think that this sort of live Q&A and live conversation can also be done really informally in ways that I love. This is a mayor in Indiana, and every week he does, at the end of the week, he sits down at his desk and he does a live Q&A. He just sits there and takes questions from the comment section. And has a conversation with folks who live in his city, answers any questions on their mind. So I think that this is a great way to also just have sort of a more informal conversation, especially that you live in such a large state that is really rural in a lot of parts. This is a great way to sort of open up access to your senior leadership to folks who might not ever be able to make it to Olympia in person to talk to these people, right? I think it's a great way to really have an accessible conversation with folks in the community. Can we click through? And then the last thing I want to touch on here is replying to comments. Replying to comments is really the silver bullet right now on Facebook. It's one of the best things you can do to make sure that your content performs well on the platform. You want to be in there, and even if it's a simple, like you can see here from the Department of Agriculture, it's just a good work exclamation point. It can be a simple thanks exclamation point, right? They can be really, really simple, easy replies. Use common responses that you already have written up for email communication or other ways people are contacting you, and just post those in the comment section. By replying to comments, you're fostering conversation on a post, which is naturally going to help that post perform better in newsfeed. The other great thing about replying to comments is that it actually tends to help clean up that comment section. So one of the things that it can be really helpful with is letting folks, when people say nice or productive things in your comment section and then they get a response from their government, that's a really positive feedback loop, right? They're going to want to keep coming back and saying nice and positive things. I would never suggest engaging with the trolls if you guys have any, and I'm sure there are some in the room. I don't think that that's ever really a productive conversation, but the trolls actually tend to go away over time. If you're engaging with other people but ignoring the trolls, that's a really negative experience for them. We've done a lot of research into sort of what trolling looks like on the Facebook platform, and one of the things that we've learned is that trolls tend to exhibit roughly the psychological profiles of 12-year-old boys, which probably will not surprise any of you who regularly deal with these trolls, but being ignored is the ultimate nightmare, right? They're doing what they're doing for attention, so if you're ignoring them but paying attention to people who are playing by the rules, it's a really negative experience, and they tend to go away over time. So there's one thing you take away from this presentation. It should be reply to comments. It's great for your page ranking, for your post ranking and newsfeed, and also good for cleaning up that comment section. You click through. You click through one more. So I just want to leave you guys with some resources before we jump into Q&A. The first thing is politics.fb.com. Don't be turned off by the politics name. This is our politics, government, and advocacy microsite. It has all of the tips I gave you here today, as well as a downloadable version of this presentation. It won't have all the specific Washington State examples in it, but it'll still have most of the content. This is a great place to go for product best practices, updates on new products, especially those that are important in the government ecosystem. And there's a whole track now for government institution pages on this website that I think will be particularly helpful for you guys. Facebook.com/govtpolitics is actually a Facebook page that my team maintains where we post best of examples of government content from around the world. So it's a great place to go to get inspired and see what your colleagues are doing around the country and around the globe. There's also a Facebook group, a group for a page that is attached to this Facebook page where we regularly go live and do webinars and other best practices things. Some of them are very politically focused, but especially now that we don't have an election coming up anytime soon, we'll also be doing ones that are much more focused on government. And then finally, I wanted to give you that fb.me/security checkup link one more time here. Please, please, please make sure that you have strong passwords and two-factor authentication turned on so that you can keep these accounts safe and secure. And then, of course, I'm always a resource. Jesse can always get you to me, so please don't hesitate to reach out if there's ever anything that we can be helpful with. I know nobody has brought it up yet, but I know we've been having some widespread outages across the country today. So for those of you who can't post, I'm sorry. We're working on that as quickly as possible. But things like that or other much smaller things, always please feel free to flag those for me. I'm here to help. But with that, I'd love to open it up to questions that folks have.
Great. So Gary had said that we have quite a few questions on the remote participants. So I'd like to start with people online first, and then we'll come into the room.
Yeah, so we received a couple questions throughout your presentation. I'll start with Ashley first from DNR. Asked a couple really good questions. They started using groups, but they're having a hard time getting a good following. Do you suggest any tips on getting an effective following with new groups?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things that are good to note. I think use your existing assets to promote the groups. So promote the groups on the page and sort of other Facebook assets that you have, right? Don't be afraid to sort of mix those things, right? Post on the group, post in the page and say, hey, we've got this new group. We'd encourage you to join it. I think the other really key thing for using groups, especially at the beginning as the sort of group creator and moderator, you've really got to be fostering that conversation. You've got to be going in there, posting questions, putting up polls, really replying to comments. You've really got to do a lot to sort of start to build the conversation, because until people feel like they're really comfortable with the group, they're not going to take on the burden of posting and sharing. So it is, I think groups are a lot of work. If you're creating a group from the ground up, it's a lot of work for the sort of administrators right at the beginning. But I think the key is to keep fostering conversation, to set really clear ground rules for the conversation you're going to allow in the group. I think is also an important starting tip. And then to make sure that you're once again using already built up social media presences to let people know that the group exists.
Awesome. Another question in regards to Facebook Live. Apart from recording an actual event, what's a good length that you would suggest for an average Facebook Live video? Most people are having a hard time going beyond 10 minutes? Is that
Yeah, so
something
I would
that-
suggest 15 to 20 minutes. It takes some time. This advice should not be confused with like how long should a regular on-demand video be? Like that, my answer there is 30 seconds to 2 minutes. But Facebook Live actually works better in slightly longer formats. It takes time to build an audience. So going live for 2 minutes isn't very effective because you haven't really had a chance to build an audience yet on that live video. So I'd suggest something in the 15 to 20 minute time range. Although if your audience is staying strong, there's no reason to not go longer. I think one good way to sort of, if you don't have, I get that lots of times people don't have more than like 10 minutes worth of straight talking things to say. So I think that's a great chance to start taking questions, right? That can take up some real time in a live video and is actually going to get more people to tune in because they realize that if they're there and asking questions, their question might get answered. So yeah, I would try to make those a little bit longer, 15 to 20 minutes, even 30 minutes if it's going well, and try to maybe expand what you're doing by answering some questions.
When it comes to a particular Facebook Live video, it's kind of my own question here. Do you see more success with kind of a static setting up a phone on a tripod and kind of leaving it there, or the integration of kind of the shaky walking around, or a little bit of both? Do you kind of see more success in either or of those?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it depends on what you're doing, right? If you're like taking people on a tour of something, like you're going to need to be walking around. What I will say with Facebook Live is that people don't care that much about the video quality. People rarely comment or, give us feedback about video quality. What they care about is audio quality. And I'm sure some of you, especially those of you who sort of work in more wilderness-based agencies and maybe have done some lives outside where it's harder to control the noise, if people can't hear you, they will take over your comment section with like comments that are like, audio, can't hear. And it's like, yeah, the 17 other people before you commented that, like, we got the message, but they will take over your comment section. So my thing is, I would worry less about the visual quality of the video and think very carefully about the audio quality, and focus more on that, because we've just seen time and time again, people care less about the visual quality, but they care a lot about the audio.
Would you suggest maybe getting like a cell phone audio external mic, or just kind of trying to place it close towards the action, if you will?
Yeah, so my favorite tool in this space is you can get on Amazon, you can get like a $7 lav mic that plugs into a headphone jack on your phone. That's my favorite like live accessory. So I think it's whatever you guys are comfortable with and whatever your budget's stretched to, but I think those cheap lav mics that plug into a phone jack work great. I love those. I use those outside when I'm going live. Like, I think those are awesome. So that would be my recommendation. I also think that if you're, that's the first live accessory I would buy if I was going to buy an accessory. The second would be a tabletop tripod, because I think if you are like sitting at a table answering questions, you don't want the phone to be shaky. It's one thing if you're walking around and sort of giving people a scan of a room, but if you're just like sitting still and your frame isn't moving, you don't want the phone to be shaking. So I think a cheap tabletop tripod is also a good choice.
Yeah, and I know us personally, we found one on one of the sites. It was like $14, and it's actual, I want to say it's about 4 feet tall. So even if you don't have a tabletop, or if you're setting it up in the middle of an aisle or something like that, you still are able to kind of get high enough to see everything. And that thing's been our bread and butter. So I throw that little personal suggestion out there for those. Another question we have, please ask Facebook about the huge downtrend in our Facebook fans, people that like our pages, actually seeing our content and what efforts Facebook is taking to rectify that issue. We used to have thousands upon thousands of more people who saw our content, but the changes they've made to the algorithm has really impacted our reach. It's more than just good posts or just posting good content. Sometimes good content doesn't get the reach it used to.
So, yeah, and I really did touch on this, I think, more at the end of the presentation, but you're not wrong, right? Over time, reach has gone down on Facebook for a couple of reasons. So sort of there's just the competition issue, right? There's like twice as many posts available on Facebook than there were even last year, right? Like, and all these posts are competing to be seen in people's news feeds. To just sort of give you an idea, the average person, every time they open their phone and open Facebook, there's about 2,000 posts that they're eligible to see in their news feed. And at max, they're probably going to scroll through 100 of them, and that's at max. So we're always rating and ranking those every post based on what we think people are going to want to see. So the newsfeed environment has just become more competitive, but we also did make that change, that meaningful social interactive algorithm change in January of last year, that did change the way content was ranked. And so, like I said earlier, I think the single best thing you can do to make sure that your content keeps popping back up in newsfeed is reply to comments and foster conversation. That being said, the reach on Facebook is never going to be what it was in 2008, right? It's just a much, much more competitive environment these days. But we have seen pages do really, really well in this new environment. Pages that are particularly interactive and engaging in that comment section still tend to do well.
Got a question we actually experienced recently. I'm sure a lot of other agencies in the room have experienced it as well too, but we are facing, I guess we'd call them trolls or just audience members who are checking in to our Facebook pages with spam or political photos in nature. We're unable to hide those photos or delete those photos or get rid of that option to be able to at least review when people not when they tag our page, but when they actually check in. Our specific example is for our cemetery. Do you have anything that might be coming up in the future or a way that we can combat some of that?
Yeah, so you can turn off reviews on your, reviews and check-ins on your Facebook page, which is generally something I recommend for government pages because I think that oftentimes those reviews and check-ins tend to be political in nature and not actually a reflection of the service you're providing, unlike if you were a small business or something. So you can turn those off in your settings, in your page settings, which is generally my recommendation, especially when you're a government agency and you don't have the ability to hide or delete content that people post because of sort of First Amendment concerns. So I think sometimes it's better to just remove the option altogether, although obviously that's up to you guys.
Yeah, with this one specifically, we received so many really great posts about, people that are visiting the cemetery, people who are paying respects to maybe their veteran father or mother, with the pictures of their family, or maybe they just stopped by and took a really awesome picture while there was snow out. So we would kind of hate to eliminate those because we get really, really great content from the community for that. But now we're starting to face some of that spamming. So kind of that double-edged sword, which way do we lean to?
Yeah, and ultimately, right, that has to be a decision for you. I mean, keep in mind that if any of those posts do violate Facebook's community standards, we will take those down, right? Like, it's not that we would just let anything sit up there, right? If somebody is posting something that, is hate speech, is bullying, anything like that, that obviously comes down and we will take that down. You don't need to take that down. I mean, report it to us, but we're not going to make you as the government remove that because I understand that you can't. But beyond that, it is sort of an all or nothing game. Obviously you guys have the ability to delete those, but I understand like the technological ability, but just because of the sensitivities around a government page, it tends to be on or off is what we've seen with other partners. But obviously, if you cut it off, then you cut out the good too. So it's just weighing those issues. But once again, if the content is ever so egregiously bad, please report it to us so that we can get it down.
All right, we've got one more online question, then we'll open up to the room. Sometimes downranking content Facebook deems passive can harm the public, especially when we're trying to get out emergency information regarding measles, wildfires, earthquakes, etc., while users are looking for celebrity information. Any chance Facebook can actually recognize that some government information can provide life-saving information to people?
Yeah, so we have lots of surfaces where we're sort of pulling up government information in specific ways because we do recognize that government information is unique and special, and right, like you're not a Rihanna fan page, you provide an additional value to the community. So a couple of, not that Rihanna fan pages don't provide value to the community. Stephen is like looking at me like I've just insulted his mother. I take it back. I'm sorry. But a couple of things we do. So in emergency situations where Facebook activates Safety Check, there's a community information section of Safety Check where there's an option for governments to post information and updates to their community, which is an additional service that's only open to governments and a couple of like NGO type of partners. We also have a section on Facebook that's rolled out in a couple of cities in Washington State. It's not everywhere yet, but it's called Today In, and it's basically a unit in Facebook that surfaces local news and reliable information. So we add government pages to that Today In surface so that when a government page posts, there's this like additional surface that post goes into, and users who are subscribed to Today In on Facebook get a notification every day reminding them to visit the surface. And when they go there, they can see government information there. So that's a special place where we put government information. There's also a tool that I'm extremely excited about that we've rolled out to about 300 government partners so far called Local Alerts. It's a tool we're only giving to government institution pages. We're giving it to government institution pages at both the state and the local level, although primarily it's at the local level right now. And it's called a local alert. When you mark a post as a local alert, it actually sends a notification to all of your page fans who live in your area and let them know that, like, you know, the Washington Department of Natural Resources has like issued a local alert for your community. You can click through it. It can be a local alert about a fire warning or whatever it is. So this is an actually huge amount of power. We basically never given pages the ability to do this thing where they can send out a notification to people before. So we're rolling it out slowly. Like I said, it's at about 300 pages, although we're hoping for a more wide rollout later this year. But that is another special tool that we're providing to help governments get out, just like you said, critical information content that everybody needs to see in their community right away. And it's a tool we're only giving to government because we recognize that you guys, you know, hold a special place. You know, never say never. Maybe someday the Rihanna fan page will get local alerts, but it feels unlikely.
Don't do it. Eva, would it be helpful? I know it's kind of as you roll out this tool, you'll add people as needed. Would it be helpful if we sent you or if I sent you a list of the agencies we have that do emergency response or do respond to outbreaks or crises?
So right now our trial is closed at the 300 partners we have, but when we do get to the point where we're expanding, yes, that would be awesome. So we will be in touch about that.
Okay, in the room, do we have questions, comments, things for discussion with Eva and Steven?
Shine.
We got one. Okay.
So Eva, you mentioned the importance of audio on Facebook Live over video, but what we've struggled with is how do you test how your audio is to your audience before you go live?
Yeah, so what I like to do is on your personal profile, so there's a couple of options there. Some people will create like a Facebook page that is just like test page, and they'll go live there first to check it, and then somebody can like be watching it on their phone or something to see what the audio looks like coming through in a different room. What I like to do, and I think is simpler, on your personal profile, when you post, there is a privacy option on that when you're posting that is called Only Me. So I set the privacy option to only me, and I go live on my personal profile, and then I just have, and then I check it from like a different room. But obviously, do whatever works best for you. But I am a consummate planner, so like that, I never ever go live without like trying it out first. And I do it with an only me to my personal Facebook profile. But a test page works as well.
Are you still able to download the live stream videos by changing the top to M dot versus that old quick player cheat workaround? I know like it worked. We were able to basically, if we went to the hyperlink of the live stream that we did, and there's just change the very top, the very first letter to M, even if we were on a desktop, then it would give us an availability to download it as an MP4, but then that went away. Or is there anything like that that's coming back, or another option that you recommend for downloading some of those? Because we've had a lot of success, not that you'll be happy hearing this, but downloading the live streams from Facebook and uploading them onto our YouTube channel to get additional views there and be able to kind of share the content that way as well. Do you have any recommendations for that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you're reusing the content. I think that's smart, right? Not everybody is in one place, so putting it up in as many places as possible makes a lot of sense to me. I was not familiar with that workaround, so I can't speak to that. But every time when you go live, at the end of the live video, it will give you the option to download the video to your camera roll. So you can always download the video, right? We want to make sure that you can maintain that record, download the video. So that's just like built into the feature. At the end of the video, it'll say, do you want to delete this video or post it up to your feed? And do you want to download it? And you can both post it to your feed and download the video to your camera roll. So you've kept that copy of it. Or if you're doing it from a desktop, download it, to your desktop. So the downloading option is definitely there. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what that workaround used to be. So I doubt that that's coming back, but I'm not super familiar with it because there's already this native download feature.
A question, if who else is at this moment? Eva, this could be a little bit of an old school Facebook management question, but I think it comes up from time to time in this group. We are often, our target is almost always going to be people within the same time zone as us, people in the same community in Washington State. Does it matter? Have you found any success in specific times of the day that you post? If posts are more likely to get reach, I've heard, 9 o'clock at night is actually really good because it's after people put their kids to bed and then they're checking Facebook on their phone as they're laying in bed trying to relax. Is there a suggestion you have, or is it really like that's not as much pull on the metrics as it used to be?
Yeah, so chronology is only one really small part of newsfeed. That being said, there is a section of page insights on every page that shows you when your page fans are online. So it doesn't hurt to check that. Every page audience. So the answer is across Facebook, there is no aggregated best time to be posting. That being said, every set of page fans is a little bit different. So it doesn't hurt to check your page insights and see when your fans are most likely to be online. For the vast majority of pages, the graph is basically a flat line in between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. Basically the same number of people are online. Sorry guys, for those of you who manage people in the room, your employees are on Facebook on their phones under their desk all day long. But yeah, so it generally speaking doesn't matter but it is always good. Every page's audience is a little different, so I would always check those page insights and see. I think those are also, timing matters a little bit less for a regular post, but if you're thinking about when to do a Facebook Live in particular, when it matters that people are actually online at that moment, it's great to check that graph and just see when you're most likely to catch your page fans.
Great, thank you. That's great advice. I didn't even think of, actually insights as to when people be on.
Well, in your defense, page insights is incredibly complicated and there are 17,000 tabs. So
Agreed. All right, we've got one in the back of the room.
I was just wondering if you happen to know if there's scheduled posts tend to be treated the same as live posts as far as the reach is concerned. A while back, I was under the impression that my scheduled posts should be reaching more people, and they were not, and I saw kind of a drop off. It may have coincided with an algorithm change that happened that you had mentioned earlier, but I just wanted to know, are they treated the same on the back end there?
Yep, they're treated the same on the back end. We can't see whether they're, the algorithm doesn't take into account whether they're scheduled or not. That being said, timely content performs well on Facebook, right? If you're responding to a conversation that folks are having on the platform. So maybe that's a little bit of what you saw, right? Is that the kind of content you're scheduling is a little bit more evergreen and a little bit less timely or relevant or directly responsive because you're scheduling it, right? You're not responding in real time. So you might see it do slightly less well, but it's not because it's scheduled, if that makes sense.
Thanks.
Good. Go ahead, Stephanie.
So we do closed captioning on all of our videos, not only for accessibility purposes, which we have to comply with, but also because most people are scrolling through Facebook without sound on. And there's been some discussion in the group lately about captioning for live videos. Is that something that Facebook is going to roll out? Is that even possible for Facebook to caption live videos?
So the answer is we're working on it, but we're not very good at it yet. So we, especially with proper nouns and things like that, we want to get to a point where we can provide you with just a native tool that allows you to click a button and we will in real time close caption your live video. We obviously have the tool now that will put automated captions on an on-demand video that's under 40 minutes long. But what's the difference there is that when we make mistakes on that, you have the option to go in and correct them. As you can imagine, it's a little bit of a legal nightmare for our team to like let us close caption things when we're not very good at it yet in real time. So yes, we are actively working on it. We get that it's an important accessibility issue and it's something we really want to be good at. We're just, our artificial intelligence isn't there yet to do a really good job of it. There are a couple of third-party services that do it in the space that we've seen, but we do not natively do it on Facebook yet because we're just not good enough, but we are actively working on it. We hear you that it's an accessibility issue, and it's a priority for us to get it right. It's just we can only make the machines learn so quickly, so we're working on it.
Thank you.
Great. Any new questions online?
No additional questions.
Really quickly, actually, on that live captioning thing, I know this is not a perfect solution, but if your live video is under 40 minutes and you upload it as a regular video on your newsfeed after you're done going live, you can go in and edit the video and add in closed captions after the fact, which I understand is, like, once again, it's not a perfect solution. It's not captioned while it is live, but it at least does open up the option for folks in your community who are hard of hearing to be able to read those captions on the video after it's done being live. So not perfect, but at least gets you halfway there.
And you did get a kudos that said that they have noticed that the captioning is getting better, so thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I'm glad it's getting better. It was not top notch at the beginning, which I'm sure you all noticed, but we are working on it.
I have one thing real quick. So I personally, managing the Govs account, we don't pay for ads. It's not something we ventured into, and it's just not where we're putting our very, very limited budget. However, I know a lot of the agencies kind of fall into this weird zone with ads where the algorithm confuses their ad as a political one, and so it will get blocked or taken down because it's political. Do you have any general guidance on this? I know each one is kind of a case-by-case specific scenario, and we hit you randomly with different issues we're running into, but do you have any overall guidance that could probably help us stay out of that red zone a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things worth noting, and Washington State is a special snowflake on this one, so we'll get to that in a second. But we've got, so Facebook's definition of political ads is very, very broad, beyond what you guys would consider to be a political ad, probably beyond what I might have thought to be one, because we want to make sure that we are covering both traditional political ads, which I understand none of you guys are running because they're government institutions, but we also want to make sure we're covering issue ads here. So anytime you're running an ad about ad about environmental policy, right? You're adding an ad about we need to save this species of animal, right? That's going to become a political ad because you're talking about a political issue. It doesn't need to talk about a politician. It just needs to talk about an issue in order to be counted as a political ad. And so in order to run that ad, you will have to go through Facebook's political ads authorizations process to be able to run that ad. The other thing worth flagging here, I don't know if there's an elections agency in the room, but even informative ads about an election, like voting starts at 7 p.m. If you want to put money behind that, any sort of information about an election is also considered to be a political ad by Facebook. So we require you to also go through our authorizations process in order to run that ad. So basically any ads in the issues space or election space are going to be considered political ads by Facebook. We have additional rules in Washington State that actually prohibit the running of ads that mention or bear the image of state or local elected officials. So if you have a city councilor cutting a ribbon to open a new park in your ad, that's going to be a political ad that will not be allowed to be run in Washington State. So any ad that mentions the governor, any ad that has a picture of the governor or any other state or local elected official, you're not going to be able to run that ad in Washington State.
So interesting.
Regardless of whether you go through the authorizations process.
They may be testing the fire alarm any minute now, so it might go off. They were originally going to do it in the middle of our meeting, and we had them push it. So I just want to warn you, if that happens, that's what's going on.